At 8:12 that morning, a bouquet of white lilies arrived at my bakery with a note from my husband. "Happy anniversary, Emily. I'm sorry I can't be there for lunch. Tonight will make up for everything. Love, Ryan." I smiled when I read it. I actually smiled. That was my first mistake. Because less than an hour later, I walked into the storage room behind my bakery office, and I heard my husband's voice through the half-open door. He was laughing. Not nervous laughter, not awkward laughter, the relaxed kind, the kind people use when they think they've already won. And then I heard my cousin Vanessa say the words that turned my whole body cold. "Once she signs the refinance papers, the building is yours. After the memorial, no one will question anything." The memorial. Not the divorce, not the breakup, the memorial. I stood frozen in the dark hallway with a tray of invoices in my hands, listening to my husband and my cousin calmly discuss my death like they were finalizing a catering order. I should have burst into that room. I should have screamed. I should have thrown the flowers in his face and demanded an explanation. But before I could move, someone stepped out of the kitchen behind me and grabbed my wrist. "Do not go in there," a low voice whispered. I turned so fast I nearly dropped everything. It was Daniel Reeves, my landlord, my occasional customer, a former fire investigator I barely knew. His gray eyes were locked on mine, and his voice was dead serious. "If you walk in there now," he said, "they'll destroy the evidence before you even know what they're hiding." That was the moment my marriage ended, and the moment my survival began. My name is Emily Carter. I am 34 years old. I own a small bakery in Charleston, South Carolina, called Sweet Harbor. Or at least, I thought I owned it. Sweet Harbor was not just a business to me. It was my mother's dream before it became mine. She died when I was 24, breast cancer, fast and cruel, the kind that takes a strong woman and turns her into a memory before you understand what is happening. Before she died, she told me one thing over and over. "Whatever happens, keep the bakery alive. It feeds more than hunger." At the time, I thought she meant comfort, community, warm bread and birthday cakes and cinnamon rolls on hard mornings. I did not realize she also meant survival, because 10 years later, that bakery would become the reason someone wanted me gone. Ryan Carter came into my life 6 years before all of this started. He was handsome in a clean-cut, easy way, navy suits, careful smile, perfect manners. He worked in commercial lending for a regional bank. He made me feel safe. That matters when you have built your life from grief and debt and 20-hour workdays. He would stop by the bakery after work and bring me cold brew coffee. He learned every employee's name. He fixed a broken shelf without being asked. He listened when I talked about flour prices and payroll and broken ovens, like it all mattered. He proposed on the rooftop of our apartment building with a tiny band playing jazz downstairs in the courtyard. 2 years later, we were married. And for a while, I thought God had finally given me something gentle after years of fighting. Then things started changing, quietly, the way storms do before anyone notices the sky. It started in September of 2024. Ryan became unusually interested in the bakery finances, not in a supportive way, in a controlling way. He wanted access to the books. He asked questions about cash flow. He brought up expansion. Then he brought up debt. Then he started saying things like, "You work too hard for too little," and "If you'd let me help with the paperwork, we could make this place profitable in a real way." I did not understand then that what he meant by profitable was saleable. Sweet Harbor sat on a corner lot that had become very valuable. A developer had been buying nearby properties for months: coffee shops, a hardware store, 2 old townhomes. The rumor in Charleston was that a luxury hotel group wanted the whole block. I ignored it. I was too busy making wedding cakes and holiday pies and trying to keep my staff paid on time. Ryan, however, did not ignore it, and neither did Vanessa. Vanessa Brooks was my cousin on my mother's side, 2 years younger than me, beautiful in the kind of way that makes people forgive things they should not forgive. Dark hair, perfect skin, sharp smile. She had floated through jobs for most of her adult life: boutique manager, real estate assistant, event planner, lifestyle consultant, which, as far as I could tell, meant drinking champagne in the middle of the day and posting filtered photos online. My mother used to say Vanessa had charm, but no anchor. I tried not to judge her. Family is family. When her lease ended last summer, I let her move into the guest room over the bakery for what was supposed to be 3 weeks. It became 4 months. She said she was finding her next chapter. What she was really finding was my husband. I did not know it then. Of course I did not. Betrayal almost never enters through the front door wearing a sign. It comes in smiling. It calls you sweetheart. It offers to help carry boxes. It asks if you need anything from the store. That anniversary morning, I had been up since 5:30. I was shaping brioche dough in the kitchen when the flowers arrived. At 9, Vanessa came downstairs in silk pajamas and kissed my cheek. "Happy anniversary, Em," she said. "You and Ryan are relationship goals." I remember those exact words because later they would feel like acid in my memory. At 9:17, Ryan texted that he was stuck in meetings. At 9:40, I stepped into the back hallway with invoices. At 9:41, I heard him say, "After tonight, she'll stop fighting." At 9:41 and maybe 15 seconds, I heard Vanessa laugh and say, "You know she trusts you more than anyone." At 9:42, my life split in half. Daniel pulled me into the dark pantry beside the freezer. We stood there shoulder to shoulder while my heart pounded so hard I thought they would hear it through the wall. "What did you hear?" he asked softly. "Enough," I whispered. My hands were numb. My knees felt weak. The bouquet was still in my arms. It suddenly smelled rotten. Daniel leaned slightly toward the doorway and listened. Then he looked back at me. "Do you have somewhere safe to go?" "I live upstairs," I said stupidly. "Not there," he said. "Somewhere they don't expect." I stared at him. "Why are you helping me?" His jaw tightened. "Because 3 months ago I inspected the gas line in your basement after a complaint from one of your bakers." I blinked. "What?" "There was no active leak," he said, "but one fitting had been loosened enough to create pressure instability over time." I felt the blood drain from my face. "I repaired it." "You never told me." "You were in Savannah that weekend for the baking conference." "I told Ryan to let you know." He paused. Now I'm thinking he never did. For 1 second, the world went silent. No oven, no refrigerator hum, no dishes. Just the sound of understanding crashing into me all at once. This was bigger than cheating, much bigger. Daniel spoke again. "You need to hear the rest if you can handle it." I nodded. He cracked the pantry door open a fraction. Ryan's voice floated through. "She signs at dinner." Vanessa asked, "And if she doesn't?" Ryan answered without hesitation. "She will." Then he lowered his voice. I still heard every word. "She's tired, she's sick, and she's scared of losing the bakery. I've spent 6 months making sure of that." My stomach turned so hard I thought I would throw up right there between the canned peaches and bulk sugar sacks. 6 months. I had been sick for 6 months. The nausea, the headaches, the dizzy spells that kept hitting me in the mornings, the exhaustion. I had blamed stress, overwork, hormones, Charleston heat. I had gone to urgent care twice. My blood work had looked mostly normal. One doctor suggested anxiety. Another suggested dehydration. Ryan had held my hand both times. Ryan had rubbed my back when I threw up. Ryan had made me tea. Ryan had made my coffee every single morning. Vanessa spoke again. "And the building transfer?" Ryan said, "Once the refinance closes, the deed clause gives me control if she becomes medically unfit." I stopped breathing. Medically unfit. My mother had left the building to me in a tightly written trust. There were protections. Ryan had always acted annoyed by them. Now I understood why. He had been trying to engineer a way around them. Daniel eased the pantry door shut. His face had gone hard. "You need a lawyer," he said, "and the police." "I need proof," I whispered. "You already have a start." "No," I shook my head, "not enough." People like Ryan don't fall because you know what they are. I swallowed. They fall because you can prove it. Daniel looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Then start now." That day, I did not confront my husband. I smiled through lunch service. I iced cupcakes. I answered customer emails. I acted normal. At 2:15, Ryan kissed my cheek in front of 2 employees and said he would pick me up at 7 for our anniversary dinner. At 2:16, Vanessa winked at me and asked if I wanted help choosing earrings. At 2:17, I realized evil does not always look ugly. Sometimes it looks polished, patient. At 3, I called my mother's attorney, Harold Gaines, 71 years old, blue bow ties, memory like a steel trap. He had helped my mother write the trust for Sweet Harbor. He took my call on the second ring. "Emily, what's wrong?" I did not ask how he knew. Maybe pain has a sound. Maybe he had spent a lifetime hearing it. "I think Ryan is trying to steal the bakery," I said. There was a silence. Then, "Come to my office at 5. Bring every document you can carry." I went upstairs at 3:30 while Vanessa was out getting her nails done. Ryan was still at work, or pretending to be. His office was in our apartment. Mahogany desk, leather chair, everything neat. Too neat. The kind of neat people maintain when they think neatness looks honest. I opened the top drawer. Nothing. Tax returns, insurance forms, a watch box. The second drawer held a folder labeled Refinance. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were papers with yellow tabs marking my signature lines, commercial loan documents, asset restructuring agreements, temporary operational authority. Most of it was written in language so dense it felt designed to make ordinary people sign without understanding. But one clause stood out. If the owner became medically incapable of carrying out operations, temporary control of the property and business decisions could be transferred to the spouse acting as financial guarantor. Ryan. I kept reading. There were emails clipped behind the forms, printed, highlighted. One from a man named Preston Vale, Vice President of Coastal Crown Hospitality, a luxury development group. It was dated July 11th, 2024. Ryan, once operational control is secured, we can move quickly on the corner parcel. Current informal valuation stands at $4.6 million. As discussed, discretion is essential until the owner is removed from daily management. Removed from daily management. That phrase made my skin crawl. Another email from August. We understand the owner has been experiencing health instability. Continue documenting weakness, missed work, and business stress. Health instability. Documenting weakness. I was not sick by accident. I sat down in Ryan's chair because my legs would not hold me up. Then I saw a small silver key taped under the drawer. A stupid hiding place. Arrogant men love simple hiding places because they think no one will ever look. The key opened the bottom cabinet. Inside was a metal cash box. Inside the cash box were 3 things: a stack of cashier's checks, a burner phone, and a prescription bottle with no pharmacy label. My name was not on it. No one's name was on it. Just white tablets and a bitter chemical smell. I took photos of everything. Then I opened the burner phone. No passcode. He thought he was careful. He was just careless in the private spaces where he believed he owned everyone around him. There were text messages, lots of them, Preston Vale, Vanessa, a number saved only as R, and one thread that made my heart stop. Vanessa, October 12th, 2024. Vanessa. She almost asked me why I'm still living here. Ryan, keep her emotional. Vanessa, she's already breaking. Ryan, good. She signs easier when she's exhausted. Vanessa, what about after? Ryan, after the memorial, we disappear. Vanessa, Charleston or Miami? Ryan, depends how clean the fire is. The fire. My hands went cold. Not a divorce, not a buyout, not an accident at random, a fire. I took photos of that too. Then I searched the kitchen cabinet where Ryan kept the vitamins he always insisted I take: magnesium, vitamin D, iron, and one amber bottle with capsules I did not recognize. He had started giving them to me in May. He said they would help with fatigue. I put one in a plastic sandwich bag, then another. Then I took the whole bottle. At 4:45, I drove to Harold Gaines with a tote bag full of copied documents, photos on my phone, and the feeling that I had stepped into a life no longer governed by normal rules. Harold read in silence for 20 minutes. Then he removed his glasses. "Emily," he said, "your husband is attempting fraud, conspiracy, and potentially attempted homicide." I flinched at the word. Homicide. It sounded too large, too official, too real. He tapped the trust papers with one finger. "Your mother anticipated outside pressure on this property. That is why the trust includes a dormant protection clause." I stared at him. "A what?" He opened an old file cabinet and pulled out a thin envelope with my mother's handwriting on the front. "For Emily. Only if coercion is involved." My throat tightened before he even opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, my mother's script, rounded and careful. "Emily, if you are reading this, someone has tried to corner you. Sweet Harbor was never just a building. It was our way out. If anyone ever tries to take it from you through pressure, marriage, sickness, or fear, Harold has authority to release the Emergency Protection Fund. Use it for legal defense, personal safety, or whatever helps you stay standing. Do not let kindness make you easy to destroy. Love, Mom." I started crying before I finished the second line. Harold let me cry. Then he slid a bank statement across the desk. Emergency Protection Fund. Balance, $612,000. I looked at him through blurred eyes. "My mother did this?" He nodded. 12 years ago. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because she prayed you would never need it. I laughed once, a broken little sound. Well, I said, I need it. Yes, Harold said, I believe you do. That night, I did not go to dinner with Ryan. At 6:40, I texted him that I had a migraine and needed to lie down. He sent back a string of concerned messages. Are you okay? Do you need me to bring soup? Should I cancel dinner? Love you. At 7:02, Vanessa knocked on the apartment door and asked if I needed tea. I said no. At 7:15, I watched through the window as they left together in Ryan's car. He had told me he was going alone to clear his head. She wore my red coat, the one I had been looking for 2 weeks. That was the first night I stayed somewhere else. Harold booked me into a quiet, historic inn under his assistant's name. He also gave me the number of someone he trusted, Detective Lena Ortiz, financial crimes and domestic conspiracy cases, 42, no nonsense, clean reputation. I met her the next morning at a diner on King Street. She read my notes while drinking black coffee. When she finished, she said, "Do you want the safe answer or the winning answer?" The winning one. The safe answer is I arrest him on fraud indicators once I verify enough. And the winning answer? We let him keep moving. I stared at her. That sounds dangerous. It is. She did not soften it. But men like Ryan survive early arrests all the time. They claim misunderstandings. They bury money. They pressure witnesses. They destroy devices. If we move too soon, he becomes a husband in a paperwork dispute. She leaned forward. If we wait and document intent, method, and active preparation, he becomes exactly what he is. And what is that? A man trying to erase his wife for real estate. I swallowed hard. So what do I do? Play tired. Play trusting. Play close. And record everything. The next 6 weeks changed me. I learned how to smile at a man I now knew was measuring my life in signatures and square footage. I learned how to drink coffee without drinking it, how to hide it in potted plants, how to spit pills into tissues, how to fall asleep with one eye open, how to keep my voice calm when Vanessa hugged me, how to save copies of bank records, how to mirror texts from Ryan's tablet to a hidden cloud account, how to install a tiny camera inside a cookbook stand in the kitchen, how to live with fear without letting fear drive. The first hard proof came on November 2nd. I sent the mystery capsules to a private lab using Harold's office. The results came back 2 days later. Low-dose sedatives, strong enough to increase fatigue, strong enough to affect judgment over time, not enough to kill, enough to weaken. Ryan had not just been drugging my coffee. He had been slowly dulling my mind with supplements. Lena wanted to arrest him that day. I said no. Because by then I had seen enough to know Ryan had not yet shown his final plan. And I was right. On November 11th at 10:34 p.m., the hidden kitchen camera recorded him. He thought I was asleep upstairs. He entered the bakery after closing with Vanessa. He stood beside the gas oven and said, "This one burns hottest, right?" Vanessa nodded. He pulled a folded floor plan from his coat. "If the main prep table is here," he said, pointing, "and the front alarm locks from the inside at 11, then she won't have time." Vanessa asked, "What if staff stay late?" He smiled. "I already moved the holiday tasting to Friday. She'll be alone Thursday." Thursday, November 21st. my private menu planning night. The night Ryan had insisted I stay late and finish the holiday launch in peace. I felt sick watching it. Then I watched the next part. Ryan crouched by the utility access panel and said, "Once Preston gets control, we close in 10 days. Vanessa touched his shoulder. "And us?" Ryan kissed her. Then he said the sentence that burned itself into my memory forever. "You, me, Savannah, and whatever money's left after the payout." Not Charleston, not Miami, not a future built on love, just a route, a transaction. Vanessa was a tool too, a willing one, but still a tool. The next morning, I met Lena in her car behind the courthouse and showed her the footage. She watched without blinking. When it ended, she said, "Now we have conspiracy tied to a planned event. Can we stop it now?" "Yes," she looked at me, "but I think you want more." I did, not because I was cruel, because I knew men like Ryan. If this failed without a public collapse, he would spend the next 5 years calling me unstable, vindictive, dramatic, paranoid. He would make me defend the truth forever. I wanted finality. I wanted no room left for charm. That is when the plan changed. We would let Thursday come, but not on his terms. Lena brought in the fire department quietly, a trusted captain named Marcus Hill. They inspected the gas systems after hours. They installed silent monitoring equipment Ryan would not notice. They replaced a damaged coupling Ryan had loosened on camera. They placed remote shut-off controls in the utility room and on Lena's secured app. No fire would happen, no explosion, no one would be hurt. But Ryan would still believe his stage was set. Meanwhile, Harold filed sealed motions with the court to freeze any transfer related to Sweet Harbor the moment probable cause was triggered. The bank was quietly flagged. Preston Vale's communications were subpoenaed. And I invited everyone Ryan least expected into one room. Ryan's regional manager, Vanessa's mother, 2 longtime bakery staff, Harold, Lena disguised as a family friend, a local councilwoman who had known my mother, and Preston Vale himself. That invitation took some work. I told Ryan I wanted an anniversary redo, a private candlelit dessert tasting in the bakery after hours on Thursday, November 21st. He loved the idea because it matched his plan. I told Preston I wanted to discuss a possible holiday partnership and included Ryan for financial guidance. He loved the idea because greedy men love rooms they think belong to them. I told Vanessa's mother I was finally ready to talk about family things. She came because mothers hear fracture even when daughters lie. And I told the staff I wanted a gratitude dinner before the holiday madness. Nobody suspected the real purpose except Harold and Lena. On the morning of November 21st, Ryan kissed me in the kitchen and handed me coffee. I held the mug, smiled, touched it to my lips, and set it aside when he turned away. He brushed my hair behind my ear. "Tonight's going to be special," he said. "Yes," I answered, "it really is." By noon, my whole body felt too electric to eat. At 2, Lena texted, "Monitoring in place, building safe, you are not alone." At 3:15, Harold sent another message, "Asset freeze packet ready on trigger." At 4, I stood in the bakery alone and looked at the room my mother had built. Glass pastry case, old brass register, pale blue walls, the little crack near the window trim she always meant to repaint. I put my hand on the counter and whispered, "I'm going to keep you." At 6:30, candles were lit. At 6:45, desserts were plated. At 6:50, I placed one printed envelope beneath each charger plate. At 7:07, Preston Vale entered with a leather portfolio and a smile too white to trust. At 7:10, the rest of the guests began to fill the room. Laughter, coats, kisses on cheeks, compliments on the desserts. No one noticed how steady my hands had become. Fear had burned off sometime around 5 o'clock. What remained was clarity. At 7:22, everyone was seated. Ryan at my right, Vanessa 2 seats down, Preston across from me, Lena near the door, Harold at the far end. I stood, raised my glass, and smiled. "Thank you all for being here," I said. "This bakery has been my whole life for 10 years. I let my gaze move from face to face. My mother built it. I protected it. And tonight, I want to tell you a story about what people will do when they think a woman is too tired to fight." Ryan's smile flickered, just a little. Good. I reached for the first dessert, a coffee-soaked tiramisu in crystal cups. The room gave a soft, approving murmur. "Course 1, I said. Trust." I set one cup in front of Ryan, then one in front of myself. I lifted mine, held it in the candlelight. "For 6 months, I said, my husband made my coffee every morning." Vanessa went still. Ryan did not move. I continued. "He also encouraged me to take supplements for energy." I reached into my apron pocket and pulled out a folded lab report. Those supplements contained sedatives. Quiet, deep. The kind of quiet that changes the temperature in a room. Ryan gave a tiny laugh. "Emily, what is this?" I ignored him. The coffee contained a rotating mix of nausea-inducing additives and sleep agents in low doses. I laid the report on the table. Verified by independent toxicology. Vanessa's mother made a strangled sound. Preston Vale leaned back in his chair. Ryan tried again. "Sweetheart, you're clearly upset." That word, sweetheart. I had heard it so many times with love in my ears. Now it sounded like a knife being unwrapped. "Do not call me sweetheart," I said. Then I nodded to Lena. She pressed a button on a small remote. The projector behind the pastry case came to life. On the wall appeared still images from my kitchen camera. Timestamp, date, Ryan holding capsules over the counter, Ryan at the oven with Vanessa beside him, Ryan pointing at the floor plan. No one said a word. He stood abruptly. "This is insane." "Sit down," Lena said calmly. Her badge flashed in her hand. He sat, not because he wanted to, because suddenly he understood that the room no longer belonged to him. I moved to the second course, mini lemon tarts, sharp and beautiful. "Course 2, I said, control." I asked everyone to lift the envelope beneath their plate. Paper rustled. Inside each envelope was a copy of the refinance clause transferring operational authority in the event of my medical incapacity, along with the July email from Preston Vale, removed from daily management. Preston's face lost all color. He looked at Ryan, then at me, then at Harold. Harold said quietly, "Every transfer document has already been frozen, pending criminal review." Preston whispered, "What?" Harold folded his hands. "You attached yourself to a fraud structure built on coercion." Vanessa started crying, not out of guilt, out of panic. There is a difference. Ryan turned toward Preston. "Say something." Preston looked sick. "For once in your life," I said, "say it yourself." I clicked the remote again. On the wall appeared the text thread between Ryan and Vanessa. "Keep her emotional. She signs easier when she's exhausted." After the memorial, we disappear. Depends how clean the fire is. Vanessa gasped as if she had never seen the words before. Ryan, she said, you told me. I know what I told you, he snapped. And there it was, the first crack, the moment the mask slipped. I served the third course, dark chocolate soufflé, beautiful from the outside, hollow in the center. Course 3, I said, betrayal. I looked at Vanessa directly. My mother took you into this business when you had nowhere to go. I let you live above the bakery. You wore my clothes. You ate at my table. You smiled in my face. Her lower lip trembled. I didn't think he would really hurt you. The room inhaled all at once. She had said it. Not fully, not enough, but enough. Lena leaned slightly forward. Say that again. Vanessa burst into tears. He said it would just be a scare. He said the kitchen would be damaged and she'd be too overwhelmed to stop the sale. Ryan shouted, Shut up! Lena stood. No. Vanessa turned on him then, like people do when survival finally becomes more urgent than loyalty. You told me no one would get hurt. You said the fire marshal would call it electrical. You said you loved me. Ryan stared at her, and in front of all of us, his expression changed. Not to shame, not to regret, to annoyance. Pure annoyance. The way a man looks at a broken tool. I said what I needed to say, he muttered. Vanessa made a sound like something inside her had ripped open. Good. Maybe that sounds cruel. Maybe it is. But some truths only enter people through pain. I moved to course 4, a simple white cake with sugar glass on top. Course 4, I said, legacy. I took my mother's letter from my pocket and read the final line aloud. Do not let kindness make you easy to destroy. My voice shook on that one, not from weakness, from the ache of hearing her save me years after death. Then Harold stood and announced to the room that the Emergency Protection Fund had been activated, that my ownership was secure, that all marital claims on the bakery were now under legal challenge, that any attempt to transfer title or profits would trigger immediate injunctions and criminal review. Ryan stared at him like he had been slapped. You can't do that. Harold smiled sadly. Your problem, Mr. Carter, is that you mistook a baker for a victim. Then came the final course. No dessert, no sugar, just truth. I walked to the old utility panel beside the kitchen entrance. I placed my hand on it, and I said, For weeks, my husband believed that tonight this bakery would burn. You could feel the room stop breathing. He planned for me to stay late. He studied the ovens. He loosened a gas fitting. He mapped exits. He selected timing. Ryan rose again. You have no proof of that. Lena nodded toward the wall. Another clip played. His voice, clear, cold. If the front alarm locks from the inside at 11, then she won't have time. Then another. This one burns hottest, right? Then the final line. After Preston gets control, we close in 10 days. Ryan lunged for the projector table. Lena and another detective, who had been posing as a staff guest, were on him before he got 2 steps. He shouted. He cursed. He called me crazy, called me vindictive, called Vanessa a liar, called Harold an old fool. Then, because evil often destroys itself with ego, he screamed the one thing he should never have said. I was doing what had to be done. Silence. Total silence. Lena cuffed him while she read his rights. Ryan kept looking at me like I had violated some private rule by refusing to die politely. Preston tried to slip toward the door. Another officer stopped him. He was not cuffed that minute, but he was not leaving either. Vanessa collapsed into a chair, sobbing so hard her mother had to hold her upright. I did not go to her. That chapter was over. As Lena led Ryan toward the door, he turned back. His face was twisted now. Not handsome, not careful, just small. "You ruined everything," he said. And I answered with the calmest voice I have ever used in my life. "No. You just never thought I could stop you." The door closed behind him. The room exhaled. I looked around. Candlelight, half-eaten desserts, shocked faces. My mother's bakery still standing. My body felt strangely light, not happy, not yet, but unburied. That night did not fix everything. Real life is not a movie. Justice does not arrive with music and make your heart whole in one scene. The next months were ugly. There were depositions, search warrants, news stories, rumors, whispers in grocery stores. Preston Vale resigned within a week after subpoenaed emails tied him to early knowledge of the coercion plan. His company publicly denied involvement and cooperated to save itself. Vanessa took a plea agreement after turning over more messages and voice notes. She got probation, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order from me. I have not spoken to her since. Ryan went to trial in May 2025. The prosecution built the case piece by piece. Toxicology, the hidden camera footage, the manipulated refinance documents, the burner phone texts, the gas line tampering, bank promises linked to transfer, witness testimony from Vanessa, Harold, Captain Hill, and Detective Lena Ortiz. And then there was me. I took the stand for 2 days. I wore navy blue. I kept my hands still, and I told the truth. The jury convicted him on conspiracy, attempted aggravated assault, coercive fraud, property theft conspiracy, and reckless endangerment. He was sentenced to 14 years. When the judge read the sentence, Ryan stared straight ahead. He never looked at me. That hurt more than I expected, not because I needed his remorse, because it proved he did not have any. A year later, I still wake up sometimes at 4 a.m., still check locks twice, still pause before drinking coffee I did not make myself. Trauma leaves echoes, but echoes are not the same thing as chains. Sweet Harbor is still mine, not just legally, spiritually, emotionally, completely. I renovated the upstairs apartment, not for family, for women in transition, temporary housing for women leaving financially controlling relationships. 2 rooms, 6-month stays, quiet rent, no questions on the hard days. I used part of the emergency fund and part of the civil settlement from Ryan's frozen accounts. Harold helped set up a small nonprofit arm under my mother's name, the Grace Carter Fund. We offer emergency legal consults, short-stay housing, and business recovery grants for women whose partners used money as a weapon. I did not plan that at first. At first, I only wanted to survive. But surviving changes shape if you let it. It grows. It becomes purpose. The first woman who stayed upstairs was named Marisol. She arrived with 1 suitcase and a 7-year-old son who refused to let go of her hand. She had left a husband who opened credit cards in her name and drained her bakery savings before she could sign a lease. The second was Claire, a florist. Her fiancé had hidden debt under joint papers and threatened to ruin her reputation if she walked away. The third was Nina, a pastry student with bruised confidence and no family nearby. Each time I handed someone the upstairs key, I thought of my mother's letter. Do not let kindness make you easy to destroy. It took me a long time to understand that line fully. She was not telling me to become hard. She was telling me to become clear. There is a difference between kindness and surrender, between love and blindness, between forgiveness and access. I have not forgiven Ryan. People like to ask that, as if forgiveness is the final exam for surviving betrayal. I do not know if I ever will, and honestly, I no longer think that matters. I do not carry him around all day. He does not own my future. That is enough. As for Vanessa, I heard she moved to Atlanta, then Tampa, then somewhere in North Carolina. Restless people rarely stay long where mirrors are honest. Once, last fall, I received a handwritten note with no return address. Emily, I know sorry is too small. I know I believed lies because they fed the worst parts of me. I know I helped a man hurt you. I live with that every day. I hope one day your life feels bigger than what I did to it. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and kept baking. Some endings are not dramatic. Some are just boundaries. Last month, on the morning of our old anniversary, I opened the bakery at dawn. Charleston was still blue and quiet. The streetlights were on. The harbor air smelled like salt and wet brick. I made coffee. For myself. Fresh beans, French press, no shaking hands, no fear. I stood by the front window with the mug warming my palms and watched the first light hit the glass of the pastry case. Then Marisol came downstairs laughing because her son had dropped a sock into the stairwell. Then my assistant baker arrived, carrying strawberries. Then the ovens warmed. Then the doors opened. People came in wanting muffins, birthday cakes, croissants, normal life. That is the thing nobody tells you about surviving betrayal. The miracle is not the courtroom. The miracle is not the handcuffs. The miracle is the ordinary morning that comes after. The one where your body finally believes the danger has passed. The one where you realize your life did not end in the room where someone planned to break it. It kept going. And because it kept going, so did you. If you are listening to my story and something in your chest is tightening right now, I need to tell you this. Pay attention. Not to grand speeches, not to apologies wrapped in charm. Pay attention to patterns. Pay attention to who benefits when you feel tired, confused, ashamed, or financially trapped. Pay attention to anyone who pushes paperwork when you are sick. Anyone who manages your stress by increasing your dependence. Anyone who calls your instincts dramatic because your instincts are inconvenient to their plans. Love should make your world safer, not smaller. Trust should make you steadier, not easier to control. And if someone ever starts turning your exhaustion into a strategy, believe what you are seeing the first time. Document it. Protect your money. Tell one honest person, then tell another. Silence is where predators build confidence. Truth is where they start to shake. My husband sent me flowers on our anniversary. He thought white lilies would soften me. He thought nausea would weaken me. He thought charm would cover greed. He thought a woman with flour on her hands would not know how to fight a man in a suit. He was wrong. Because I was never just a baker. I was my mother's daughter. I was the keeper of a building built by sacrifice. I was a woman who learned too late that evil can sit at your breakfast table. But not too late to stop it. And that made all the difference. Now, every evening before I lock Sweet Harbor, I turn off the ovens, wipe the counters, and touch the old blue wall near the register where my mother once stood teaching me how to pipe buttercream roses. Then I whisper the same thing every night. We kept it. Not because the building matters more than people, but because places hold memory, and memory, protected long enough, becomes legacy. Ryan wanted a memorial. What he got was a verdict. He wanted ashes. What survived was a home. He wanted silence. What he got was my voice. And if there is one lesson I hope stays with you after this story ends, it is this: betrayal does not get the final word unless you hand it the pen.